Hey everyone, welcome to Go Green. This is a special edition training with Alec Nethercott and Core 4 Leadership. It is Monday, December 9th, 2024. Really excited to kick this off for you guys. We have Alec on. He's going to deliver some amazing training on his new book that came out this year. Before we get to that, though, I want to start off and just give a little bit of a preface to the book, to Alec, and then in just a little bit, we'll hand it over to him. And so, for those of you who don't know, Alec Nethercott was one of the co-founders of V3 Electric, one of the largest installers, sales orgs combined in California. They're in a few other markets as well. He was acknowledged as Forbes 40 under 40. Been an entrepreneur from a very young age, a lot of success. We have a similar story in the sense that we both started up a gutter cleaning company together. Not together, excuse me. We were at the same age and we were 19. And so he has a similar backstory. He's also a runner. Fun fact, he just finished a marathon yesterday. I believe it might have been his first one. I might have him clarify that in a minute. But anyways, had a little bit of time to chat with Alec at Door to Door Con, and he launched his book. It's an incredible book. I'll say a couple things about it, and then we'll let him take over. But just to say, this whole training and everything you'll get today, this is a free training. So huge thank you to Alec for taking time out of his busy day to do this. He's got a lot of things he's managing. This book's been amazing for myself. We're going to ask everybody on the call who's watching this to definitely download the book on Audible. If you love it, leave a review or get it on Amazon and also leave a review there. That's how we say thank you to Alec for his time. And also, we're going to be sharing a little bit later in the call an evaluation. So I'm going to send a link to all of you where you can click on it and take the evaluation. We're going to do a little bit of a manual version of it as well, so we can kind of use this evaluation, this leadership evaluation tool for you guys on the call so you can try it out. But yeah, basically, I read the book and got a few huge takeaways, wanted to share with you, and then we'll go ahead and pass it over. So Alec, first of all, one of the things that really stood out to me about Alec's heart and leadership was something that he says pretty early in the book that if he could do leadership development every day of his life and money wasn't an issue, that would be what he would do with his time for free. It's just something that fills him up. I love that, and he's an amazing leader. Super excited to introduce him here. And also, too, he talks about in the book that the key to a $1 billion organization is to have 100 level 10 leaders. And we'll get into what a level 10 leader is in just a bit. But anyways, I'll just leave it there and let you go ahead and take it away, Alec. Let me make you the host. Give me one sec.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thanks for having me. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
You guys see me? You guys see me, hear me? Okay.
Baby.
Awesome.
Yes, we can hear you good.
Sweet. Okay, good. Well, good to be with you guys, and thanks for the nice intro. Um, I just out of curiosity, has anybody read the book yet? You can either go off mute or you can do the little hand signal, or the little raising of the hand. I'm gonna
Not
change my
yet.
view so I can see. Okay.
I'm like halfway through the Audible, and then I was halfway through the Audible, and I got a couple of the books and for my leaders, because I really enjoyed the end of chapter 2, and I'm going to be doing that exercise for quarter 1 with all of my leaders, and all the questions.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Well, good. Yeah. Today we're gonna do kind of a different perspective on the book and some of the ideas in there. So if you've read it, I'd love to hear some of your comments that you might have. And if you haven't, then this will be a good kind of preview into what the book's about. Um, I so yeah, my name's Alec. I guess we'll just get started with the training now. I'm gonna share my screen and let's see. Allow. Is that letting me? Can you guys see it? Settings. I'll use password.
No, can't see it.
Not
You may
yet.
have to make him host, but
I think he is the host. Yeah.
The host. Okay. Allow. Oh, it's saying Zoom is requesting. Okay, I'm having my own little thing here.
Yeah, it was doing that with
Okay,
me too.
There we go.
Okay,
there you go. You guys can see it?
sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, let's jump in. So I got some slides for you. Um, I want to start with a quote. This is one of my favorite quotes. I have this on the wall, so I see this one every day. Men do not attract that which they want, but that which they are. This is from the book by James Allen called As a Man Thinketh. Some of you have probably read it, but it's a quick read and a really impactful book that's been impactful for me. But in other words, it says men do not attract that which they want. And of course, by men, it's saying humans. We don't attract what we want, we attract what we are. Um, and said another way, in life, we don't get what we want. We don't get something just because we want it. We get what we attract. And we don't attract what we want, we attract what we are. So today we're going to talk about how to become a better leader and how to show up better in all of our roles in our life. So I'll show you this. This is a picture. This is back in 2014. So this is when we were just starting the business. This was, I had a shared office with a few different people, which also happened to be the supply closet. And, it was a mess. And, I don't have a lot of memories from this time. That's why I'm glad somebody captured this photo. I know a lot of you have been entrepreneurs and kind of, had different businesses, whether it's within another business or, a gutter cleaning business or, different things that you've done. Which, by the way, is really cool that Jonathan, I just found that out earlier today that Jonathan and I both did the gutter cleaning thing in high school, which is pretty sweet. But anyways, in this photo, probably the hardest part about looking at this photo, honestly, is just looking at myself. I'm probably too hard on myself, but just seeing myself, 10, 11 years ago and seeing how much work I was going to have to do on myself in order to become an effective leader and become somebody that others were going to want to work for. It was a difficult time. You look at this room, you're like, how are you supposed to recruit a team when your office looks like this, and other parts of being early in the business. Early on, so I got into solar, or I got into door-to-door sales, and I know not all of you are doing, door-to-door. You're getting your leads from different avenues, as well as door-to-door. But I got into direct sales, I guess professionally after, when I was in college, 21 years old. I had just returned from a church mission. I wanted to marry my high school sweetheart, Carrie. We're married. We've got 4 kids now. So we were selling alarm systems, and back then we would travel in the summers, and it was the summer sales thing. But I was good at sales. I enjoyed it, and I found out pretty quickly that I really enjoyed the recruiting process. I really enjoyed building a team, and but not only did I enjoy it, but there was a lot of value in it. And, if you look at this chart that I have up here, you think of a typical org chart that a company has or that a team has. And, at the base level, you have the sales representatives, and the ability to sell is extremely valuable. Being able to go out, pound the pavement, and generate revenue out of thin air, the value that you created is very valuable to a business. But there's a level even higher than that. And it's the person who knows how to train and manage the people who know how to sell. That, the ability to duplicate yourself is extremely valuable to the marketplace. But there's a level even higher, and that level is here in the yellow. And it's the person at the top. It's the person who knows how to train and manage the people who know how to train and manage the people who know how to sell. By definition, that person is the hardest to replace, the most rare, the most valuable. And that's what I wanted to become. I wanted to figure out how to do that. How does, what makes that person different? Like, how does that person think? But then you do it and you do it, you go down that path and you realize it's hard. It's really hard. There's, I mean, there's late nights, there's rep drama, there's dealing with pay issues and people running out of money or chasing down installers or, various issues. I'm actually curious to hear from you guys. What are some of the things right now that you're dealing with that are just challenging in this phase of your career? What are some of those things?
I'll just kick us off. Yeah, it's just so some of the finance partners not paying timely, that's been the big thing. I think a lot of us have been experiencing the solar space is like
Yep.
all these uncertainties and then trying to navigate and lead a team with that uncertainty as well and keep my cool and yeah, and honestly just navigating uncertainty.
100%. And cash flow. I see somebody wrote TPO markets are stressed, payouts, power. Yeah. So inventory issues, policy changes, especially in solar. I mean, man, this last decade has been insane. I mean, every year there's some new policy or inventory or cash flow issues. Yeah, 100%. What else? Oh, I see somebody here wrote, he looks like a young Messi. It's so funny. I get that all the time. If I'm in a big city just walking around, people will stop me and tell me I look like Messi, which I'm not complaining about. I love Messi. What else? Let's
I
take
had
let's
to
take a couple more. You can go in the chat or you can go off mute. Just tell what are some hard things about being a leader?
I had to jump
Um,
in there that you look like Messi, but I will jump in and I'll say I just my biggest problem I find with new people, and it's a brand I'm starting, but it's just them complaining about their one product they get infatuated with. While if they spent that time finding more leads, closing more leads, and building their pipeline, that would be the key. But they get infatuated with getting those deals closed. So my philosophy is just keep on selling, and you're going to be just fine.
Yep, 100%. And reps will try to tell you, they'll try and convince you that the problem is a million other things. And it's your job as the leader to bring them back to the simple formula. Nope. Hey, listen, if you do it the right way, and so if you pitch the way I tell you to, and you knock enough doors, you're talking to enough people, you do those two things, you will be successful. Yeah, but what about this? What about that? Nope. And you got to keep them focused. Awesome. Thanks. One more.
I think for me, I do struggle a little bit with vision. I love to go out and lead from the front, but because I've dabbled into the book some, but getting a fine line of brand new rep to be a successful top producer, sometimes it gets a little bit gray. 6 months, a year in, etc. So maybe you could dive a little bit into that.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Thanks, Evan. Benita says, building the team. So recruiting. I mean, these are all challenges, especially in a competitive environment like we have with sales. I mean, you have people constantly, there's always somewhere else they can go. There's always others that are trying to recruit your people. I mean, these are all challenging things. Thanks for sharing. Um, so then what happens is you seek help. And if you're smart, you're going to go to books and mentors and you're going to try to look for the answers to some of these questions of how do I think? How do great leaders think? There's a good book out there called The Five Levels of Leadership by John C. Maxwell. By a show of hands, just quickly, how many of you have read this book? Uh,
I
okay.
love John C. Maxwell.
Yeah. Okay. Quite a few of you. Um, Great book, highly recommended. I'm going to summarize the book, in simple terms, where basically there's five levels of leadership. You can give someone the title, which is level one. It's the position. People follow you because they have to, because you're the boss. You've got the title. Level two is permission. That you have a relationship with them. Level three is production, because you produce. Level four is reproduction or people development. It's being able to duplicate yourself and your contribution. It says people follow you because of what you've done for them. And then there's the highest level of leadership, just these all-star leaders that are just super rare that you hear about, very rarely. And that's the pinnacle here, which is people follow you because of who you are and what you represent. Level 5. And that's really what I wanted to figure out. I wanted to figure out how to do that. Um, you know, Having done this for about 16 years, almost 17 years, um, I've seen a lot of people reach management positions. I've seen a lot of people try to get there, and I've seen a lot of people hit them, but very few actually get good at it. Very few actually get good at it. And what I've seen is that most people actually don't like their leader. They don't like their manager. They have issues with them. They rub them the wrong way. They don't admire them. They really have a problem with them. And, mostly, you think about it in any industry. Um, you get, you hang out with friends for one night and people are complaining about their boss. They complain about their manager, this and that. They did this. So when I hear somebody and they're talking about their manager and they're saying like, "Oh man, you've never met somebody like this." And they're just raving about their manager.
Thank
Wow.
you.
You have a comment? Or I think someone's not on mute. So anyway, when I hear that, I get really curious. Like, wait, like what? Like they, like, well, what is it about them that's so great? Oh, well, they're, and they'll talk about them. I'm thinking of a specific moment with a friend named Jake, and he was talking about his leader and mentor, who was Kyle Nielsen, who works at Aptiv. I think he actually just switched companies or switched roles. I can't remember, but Kyle Nielsen's a stud. He's a personal friend. But before I met Kyle, I knew almost everything I needed to know about him because of what others said about him, and because of the way that they talked about their leader. So I just got really curious about this. I wanted to develop in this way. I wanted to get better. And I started a list. I started to read a lot of the great books and listen to the podcasts, a lot of what I'm sure you guys are doing. And you start to have this list, and I had it on my phone. I still have it somewhere on my phone, but I would keep this kind of running list of all the things that I needed to develop. These are all the traits of a great leader. And the truth is it gets pretty overwhelming. You get this list that just starts stacking up, and it's like, wow. And you talk to, you could talk to 10 different mentors and you get 10 different philosophies, or you read, 20 different books from great CEOs or sports coaches, and, you get 20 different principles. It's like, okay, well, what is the answer here? Like, how do I get better at this? Like, what do great leaders have? And the answer is, and I talk more about this in the book, and just for sake of time, the answer out of a lot of research and, in my position, as a company now, I know Jonathan mentioned this, but, we've got about 500 employees, and I've been able to share dinner tables with a lot of these great leaders that at the top of the organizations of not just in solar, but in real estate, insurance, pest control, alarms, and what I've found is that the leaders at the top, they are the real deal. They are special people that have worked on themselves, that they've really made an effort to become a great leader. And the thing that they have is these 4 things. I call them the 4 multipliers, because they multiply on each other in their impact. Those 4 multipliers are these 4. It's vision, skill, character, and action. Vision, skill, character, and action. So what is a great leader? What do they have? They have these 4 things. People that you might know, or somebody that finds themselves in a management position, they can get there because they have 1 or 2 of these things, but they're never going to break out. They're never going to reach their next level until they develop all 4 of these. That's why it's so rare when you find somebody that has all 4. And going back to that list from earlier, it also puts it in a much more digestible format where it starts to make a lot of sense. And you instead of tackling a giant list of traits that you need to go read books about and get better at, they're actually not unrelated. All of those attributes actually fit into 4 categories, at least in the position of a great sales leader. They fit into vision, skill, character, or action. So I want to dive into these 4. and just you know, have a quick discussion afterwards about what these four mean. So let's start with vision. So vision, I think it was Evan that mentioned vision and just wanting to develop and get better at this attribute, you know, this multiplier. A great leader with vision, they think big. By thinking big, you know, think of how inspiring it is to listen to Elon Musk talk, whether you like him or not. I love Elon Musk. I happen to really like him. I feel grateful to be alive to just watch him. He's just one of the great entrepreneurs of any generation. Jeff Bezos, you know, think of somebody that you've seen where you just listen to them talk and they're thinking so big. And you're like, man, I'm worried about, you know, my commissions this year. You know, this guy's thinking about landing on Mars. You know, you're like, I'm like, he's on a different level. And when we hear people think big and talk big, we get really inspired. And that's really what defines a leader with vision, is that they're inspiring and magnetic. People want to help them. People come out of the woodworks. People that aren't even on your radar right now will come and they will find you if you make your mission clear and if you have a big vision. The ability to build a following. Somebody had mentioned, you know, building a team is challenging as a leader, and I agree. One thing that happened early on in the business is we had, I think I mentioned this story in the book. We had a guy named Axel who's still at V3 and just one of my favorite people. He actually left us about 2 years into the business. He left and he worked for this tech startup, and he was gone for 3 or 4 years or so. But at the time, I mean, you saw our initial office. I mean, it was just this tiny, you know, lame office. When he came back and I was recruiting him back 3 or 4 years later, so now he runs our inside sales team, or you know, runs the team over at V3. He anyway, he comes back 3 or 4 years later, and we had gone from one office and then to a second office, which was, you know, significantly larger. And he saw kind of for the first time that, oh wow, this is bigger. Like this is, you know, you guys aren't this mom and pop business that I thought you were. You guys are thinking big. And good people, they don't want to be a part of something that is going to be small. Like good people want to be a part of something that's going to blow up, that's going to get really big. And so I challenge you to think like, am I thinking big enough? Are my goals big enough? Is it enough to inspire somebody? Like when I'm saying my goals, when we're talking about the vision for the team, like, does it get my heart racing a little bit, you know, because it's a little bit of a stretch goal. That's when you know you're on the right track. This one's really important. Ambition for the cause, not vain ambition. That quote comes from the book Good to Great, which is an annual read for me. That's like my business Bible. Great book. But basically, ambition for the cause, not vain ambition, it's the idea that, you know, I think of that quote. I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's, you know, it's referring to athletes. Play for the name on the front of the jersey, and they'll remember the name on the back of the jersey. In other words, no team ever got anywhere because of vain ambition or because of somebody's personal ambition. You really have to have your main ambition is for the cause. I remember hearing about this guy that one of my friends had worked for, and he had a big van, and he would go drop off all the sales reps in the neighborhood. And at the begin, you know, at the beginning of the day, and when they would hop out of the car, he would say, "Get out there and make me money," you know. And of course, none of them worked for him for very long because his ambition was, even if he was joking when he was saying that, you know, that nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to work somewhere so that they can make, you know, somebody else rich. Like that's just not a powerful enough idea. It's not a big enough idea. It has to be about something bigger. Like you are, as a leader, you're in the business of transformation. You're transforming people's lives, both through the product that you sell, but also the personal development that you offer when they come and work for you. And they need to see that. It has to be about more than just a paycheck. Being an evangelist, you know, people think of that in terms of a religious standpoint, but you've got to be an evangelist for this cause, in a real promoter of the cause that that you stand for. And again, it goes beyond just making money. It can't be about money. It has to be about more than that. Um, who can think of, well, actually, let me share a couple. Let me share one more example, and then I'd like to open it up and just get it, from somebody here who has an example of someone who's an inspiring leader with vision. The first thing I'm thinking of is, you can see here, I've got a picture of Martin Luther King. I've got Tyler Durden from Fight Club, even though he's a fictional character. He just built this big following because he had this counterculture idea and people just wanted to follow it. Tyler Durden had nothing, and he was, just kind of an odd guy, but he had these ideas and people just wanted to follow him. There's a story about Steve Jobs. Um, Steve Jobs, and this is crazy because he was in his 20s when this happened. Like, imagine, doing this. But basically, he was trying to recruit a new CEO for Apple, and his board was kind of pressuring him that, hey, it's time to get legitimate. Their company was still relatively small, but there were competitive pressures, and they were growing, and they were outgrowing him as the CEO. So he goes out and he's going to go recruit a CEO from somewhere, some real CEO, like a professional CEO, with an MBA and, a fancy CEO. So his favorite is a guy named John Scully, who was running PepsiCo at the time, one of the largest publicly traded companies at the time, very successful CEO. And he's recruiting him relentlessly. And John Scully turns him down. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. And hey, I've thought about it. I'm in a good spot. I'm not going to work for some computer startup. I'm running PepsiCo. Like, I'm the man. Well, Steve Jobs, as the story goes, Steve Jobs told him something that made him lose sleep all night that night. And he said, John, do you want to be remembered for selling sugar water the rest of your life? Or do you want to come with me and change the world? And so John Scully's, tossing and turning all night, and he calls him the next day and he says, all right, Steve, I'm in. And this kid in his 20s recruits a big time, someone making 8 figures a year, this is like in the 80s, and recruits him. And so that's the power, that's the influence of having vision. And that's what it's going to be required of you to have in order to inspire the type of behavior that will build a following at any level. Even if you have a team of 10, in order for it to feel like more than just a job, in order for it to feel like, hey, I'm part of something, bigger than just me. The leader needs to have vision. So now, just opening it up, you can put it in the chat or you can go off mute. Who's someone that you think of when as we've talked about vision, somebody that who's built a lot of influence because they're strong in vision?
Like Matthew McConaughey, Jesse Itzler, some people I look up to.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Okay, someone said Elon Musk. Jonathan says Jonathan Budd, Power CEO. Awesome. I think I saw a podcast with your CEO and loved it. I love the vision. Not that Jonathan's biased. You guys share a first name.
Right.
Awesome. Good stuff. Dave Madsen. Love it. I've heard that name. I've never met Dave, but heard good things. Love it. Okay. Next one is skill. Skill, this one is really important. Skill is, this is really being an expert at your craft. This is being respected. This is, in our day and age, people don't want to work with amateurs. They want to work with pros. If you have a pipe break at your house, you have a problem, you don't go online and look for, a plumber with, someone who dabbles in plumbing. Like, oh, I want someone who does this on the side. It's like, no, you're looking for 5 stars. You want a pro. You want someone that's going to get the job done. Well, how do your customers and how do your salespeople look at you? Do they look at you as someone who's dabbling in 5 different things? Do they look at you as an amateur, or do they look at you as someone who's committed and who's an expert and who's a professional? You've got to have that skill. You've got to be committed. This is someone who's an effective trainer. Someone who can control conversations, especially with salespeople, because they will just take control of the conversation if you don't. So some of you, I'm sure could, relate to that. You got to be able to control those conversations and be persuasive. Um, an effective trainer, some of you may have seen this, and this may happen to some of you on the call, and I'll have you share this in a minute. But have you ever seen somebody where you're doing a training and people are taking out their phones and recording the person training, like their pitch or some type of a sales training, like how to overcome an objection, or they're recording their pitch or something like that. People are pulling out their phones and filming them. That's a good indicator of somebody who is high in skill, somebody who's, proficient in this category. I'm thinking of the example I came up with. I don't know, the kind of first thing I thought of was Jordan Belfort. There's this, which obviously he's got a crazy story, and he had other leadership attributes that were not present, and he ended up going to jail. And so this is probably not the best example, but it was the first one I thought of. There's a clip that I saw when Jordan, this is from Wolf of Wall Street. Jordan goes to work for this penny stock company. Have you guys seen this clip? Do you know do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, he goes to work for this penny stock company, and they obviously aren't doing a lot of volume. It's not a very impressive place. But he sits down and he starts making phone calls, and he's selling lights out. And so everybody that's working there starts gathering around him, watching him on the phone. You remember this scene? And he's on the phone and he's like, it's the hottest thing to come across my desk, and it's the latest in technology and whatever. And he's on the phone and everyone's just gathering around listening to this phone call. Well, that's the type of influence that you can build when you showcase your skill. And when people see that, it builds a lot of influence. So now let's open it up. Like did anybody have an example of this or something that you've seen, or maybe give someone a shout out that's on this call? Who's somebody that you've seen, or an example of how skill can build influence?
Yeah, he's on this call. I'm going to shout him out. His name's Owen Carey. And
Okay.
yeah, he's got a level of technical skill that even somebody like myself who's been in the industry for 12 years, if I have a question to answer, I go to that guy.
I love it.
I appreciate that, dude. I'm actually making everything up, so just make it sound like I know what I'm talking about, Jonathan.
Is it Owen? How do you say your name?
Yeah, it's Owen.
Owen. Okay. Awesome.
I cheat though. My dad's an electrical engineer, so it's kind of in my brain. So batteries have been a blessing, I'll tell you that much.
It's the genetics.
Yeah, he had to have 5 kids. None of them are engineers, so I guess some of us have to have that in our brain.
That's hilarious. Awesome. Well, good stuff. Great example. Okay, next one is character. Character. This one's really important. Character is being trusted and admired. Your team has to trust you and admire you. This is one of the more difficult multipliers to develop, and just frankly to work on with somebody, because it involves really, digging deep and looking at who you are as a person, looking at, are you following through on your commitments? There's some bullet points here that I'll just kind of walk through. They, admiring you. Do they, would they trade places with you? Do they feel confident that you're the type of person that can help them get what they want? Because if you're not, if your personal life is a mess, and every month you've got a new, girlfriend or boyfriend, every every meeting that you walk into, you're late, or you say you're going to call and you don't call, or you say, yeah, hey, can you call this recruit for me? You don't, and you ghost them. If those things are happening, then eventually they're going to leave you and they're going to go somewhere else to work with somebody that they admire, because they need to feel like they can get what they want from you, and that how to help them get that. Does that make sense? Having character means doing what you say. It means, if you say you're going to do something, you do it. They are paying very close attention. And you may want to believe that your personal life and your work life are and should be separate, but they're looking at both. It's not going to be as separate as you may think. I mean, they're watching you and they're watching you very closely. They're on your Instagram. They're watching what story, on the yacht with the cigar, drunk with friends or whatever. I mean, that's all those things they're gonna be a turnoff for really good quality people. Um, you're guided by values. You're not guided by your urges or your appetites or just doing whatever you want like a child. You're guided by principles, the things that you live by. And if some decision or if something doesn't fit in those values, you don't do it. That's how you guide your decision making. Personal life in order, the ability to admit fault. I don't know why this one is so hard. um, just saying sorry. If you drop the ball, if you did something wrong, if you were late, and that's going to happen, you guys are juggling a lot, and some balls are gonna get dropped. Do you say sorry? I don't know why that one is so hard. I'll be in meetings and I'll be so surprised when I see somebody, and I'll lose respect for people because I'll see it. I'll see the interaction, and all they have to do is say sorry, but they'll say everything other than just, "Hey, my bad. I'm sorry about that." You earn a lot of influence and you earn a lot of trust when you actually have that humility and being able to admit fault. Um, some examples of character. You got Stephen Covey, who's my personal hero. Love Stephen Covey. Seven Habits is a book I read once a year. Love that one. John Wooden. Any John Wooden fans in here, by the way? John Wooden was a UCLA basketball coach. High character. His books are great. Abraham Lincoln, who arguably without him, the country would have been divided. What we worked so hard for uniting this country. He held it together, and because of his character. And there's some great books about just the character that Abe Lincoln had. But there's so much influence that comes, and people just want to be around you when they just want you to rub off on them when you are this type of a person. And I've had people, I always had a policy that, if reps left, even if they burned a bridge, I would still pay them. I mean, we never had anybody that we'd never paid. And that single act, if they, I mean, countless. I mean, I could name a lot of people who came back after being gone for a year or two, realizing how rare that was, that most people out there are not high end character, that it's a jungle out there. There's a lot of bad players. And just that trust that I had earned from them by my actions had made it attractive to come back. So now I'll open it up briefly. Who comes to mind when you think of character, and how does character build influence?
I'll jump in here. So this was, by the way, I loved your book, and this was my favorite part of your book. Just because I think that this is kind of one of those unspoken secret weapons that people don't think about. Character is impossible to fake, right? Like the only way that you can show character is through true work and deep personal development. And one person I think about is John Maxwell, who I've met a couple times and been a fan of his for a very long time. And I asked him a couple questions when I met him about, how do you keep on the path? And he just said, you keep on the path by keeping on the path, right? And like character is just something that you have to stay with and keep getting better, right? It's just keep growing, keep on swimming, just keep doing the thing. And yeah, that was someone I admire who gave me some really cool advice.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. And good to see you, Matt. Matt messaged me, and I'm like, do you know? And I actually had to look up your sister on Facebook. I said, do you know this person? You're like, that is my sister. And so
Yeah,
I know Matt's sister. We served a church mission together in Norway back in 2006. And anyway, pretty cool.
yeah. Small world, right?
Yep. Great comment. Thanks, Matt. And I love that you said that. I don't remember your exact words, but something like, I'm glad that this was in the book. And most people don't let's see, what am I trying to say? Most most leaders tend to study the topics that they're most interested in and not the topics that they should be studying. Or in other words, the very thing that's holding them back, they might have a blind spot. And character often is is one of those things, and that's why it was so important. When I put this in the book, it's, hey, someone who's a lights out salesperson, they keep reading books on sales and skill. You're like, hey, I got a newsflash for you. That's not your problem. That's not why you can't recruit a team. It's because you have a drinking habit, and because you're late to every meeting, and because this and that. And it's, hey, you need to go work on character. And anyway, so great comment. Thank you. Okay, and lastly, and most important, this is action. The reason I say it's the most important, or arguably the most important, is because this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where this is what drives actual results. And in my experience, action is what drives the value needle and drives the, you build so much influence, leaders that are proficient in action. These are leaders who lead from the front. They figure out which activities drive the most value, and then they just do those things over and over and over. It's less talk, more action. It's like, I don't want to sit around and have these long extended meetings about this and try to look busy. It's like, we're not getting paid for these meetings. We get paid for bringing business. We get paid for the revenue, and that's our job, to be on the front line. And especially in a sales role, when our job is driving revenue, we're on the front lines. We can't hesitate. It's a shoot first, ask questions later mentality. There's no hesitation. It's like there are other people a lot smarter than us that are working on the operations side, that they'll play defense. They'll make sure that we don't mess things up. And hopefully you've got a good team and good ops. I'm sure you do, that can help kind of play defense. Your job is all offense. No hesitation. There's a great book called Rhinoceros Success, and he's like, throw away everything you know about leadership and success, and it's all about just taking action and charging like a rhinoceros. So, a few examples of this. I've got Braveheart. William Wallace from Braveheart, Grant Cardone, although he's gotten a little wacky, I think, but I still have him up there just as someone, the 10X idea. I read Grant's book, The 10X Rule, and I don't know if a lot of you have read it. I recommend that one. But at first I thought it was going to be another book about how to get 10 times the results with like 10 times less work, but I was delighted when I read the book and I saw that it was about doing 10 times more work. It's the idea that successful people they're just doing more and they're taking more action. So I love that. On the right, you've got Napoleon Bonaparte, who built a ton of credibility, a ton of influence with his armies, and they took over. I mean, France is just this little country, and they just completely took over all these neighboring countries because he was a warrior. That's how he started. And he wasn't afraid to be on the front lines. Like he had horses that were shot out from under him. I think he lost like a dozen horses that got stabbed or shot, and then he just kept charging. And a lot of the armies they were fighting were paid. They were paid soldiers that were commissioned by the queen, that they were back in their castles and their, eating their grapes, and they just didn't have the tenacity or the drive to defend these people when you had, their leaders weren't even there. They weren't even involved. Whereas Napoleon was on the front lines. Okay, so I'll open it up here. So who's somebody you think of with action? How does action inspire influence? That could be somebody internally, or who's the first person you come to mind? Or maybe I just took every example because I just
The
went through
47th president, Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. You got to hand it to him. That guy takes action. love him or hate him. I mean, he's getting stuff done. He's doing things. He's not even president yet, and he's already, he's moving things around. He's telling about his plans. Like yeah. Emmanuel says his father. Love that. Great example. Okay, so these are the four multipliers. I'm looking at the time. So let's jump into this real quick. I'm going to skip these. I want to talk about just this idea. So this is a quote I think about all the time. This is by Tony Robbins. He says, "The chokehold on the growth of any organization is the psychology and the skill set of the leader." Here's another quote. This is by Ray Dalio. He says, "Everyone has at least one big thing that stands in the way of their success. Find yours and deal with it." And if you haven't read his book, Principles, I highly recommend it. Very, very good. Everyone's got one thing standing in the way of their success. Find yours and deal with it. It's been my experience that the best way, when I'm asked the question, like, where do I start? Like, it gets overwhelming. I've got this big list of things I got to get better at. Where do I start? The answer is you start with the one big thing standing in your way. You start with the multiplier that you are the weakest in. This is in the book, but this is a real example, and there's a whole bunch of them. It's just so cool to see people change and see people, become better at their deficiencies and kind of make that choice. But so we do this survey, and the company still does it, where we survey all the sales leaders, and we do it. We survey the people, and I would recommend to do this as well. And we could even do this we could do a workshop, or we could do something, Jonathan, where we go kind of more in depth into this. But basically, we ask these questions that help determine where they stack up and where they are on a scale of 1 to 10. How proficient they are in each category. So here's two examples. We had John and we have Kevin. John was low in character, really high in vision, low in character. You'd go to his sales meetings. They were just on fire. You're like ready to run through a brick wall. He had no problem recruiting. He was so inspiring. That team, the room was just always full, but people would leave as soon as they would come. He had this huge retention problem because he had anger issues. He would kind of, burn bridges, and so he could recruit really well, but they'd leave as fast as they were coming. Kevin's deficiency was action. So he was super high in skill. One of the most lights out salespeople I know. Very talented. He would like, raise his hand and make comments, or he'd give trainings, and everybody would think, how is this person not the number one in the company? Like, that pitch is insane. Anybody would sign a deal if you're in front of him, but as the results show, he was low in action. The guy was lazy. He had learned in his life, he had kind of developed that because, and there may be some people on this call, I know this affects me, to some degree, is you're good with people, you're in your life, you're good. It's like the person who, you go to your English teacher, you have a C on your paper, and you go after class and you walk out 20 minutes later with an A- because you talked your way into, getting the results that you want. Well, the challenge with that is, you develop a deficiency in action, because the kids who actually earned the A-, they had to learn how to work for it. Whereas you learned that you could talk your way into it, if that makes sense. So after showing the data and really just kind of making this, easier to understand, less esoteric and like hard to describe, we put the results, we showed it to them, and we went to work on it. Almost like going in the locker room, you're on the, your favorite basketball team, and you're a player, or you have a player on your team they need to practice their sprints because the team's losing because they're not getting to the line fast enough, or they're not, their cuts are not fast enough, or their defense, or whatever that is. And they need to go work on that thing because it's holding the team back. Well, a year later, John, so I'll use John just sake of time. I'll just do this one example is John. John goes to work on character. He sees the data. He's like, all right. I see what I need to do. And he starts reading Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. He reads How to Win Friends and Influence People, Wooden. He starts working on these books. And the cool thing is that now it's his idea. So he's coming to me telling me all these things that he's learning, having these aha moments. And the cool thing is they're things that I'd been telling him for years up to this point. But because he had read it on his own, it became his. It was his idea, and he internalized it, and he got better at those things. Um, a year later, his team was twice the size, and his income had doubled. Those are the types of changes that happen when we decide to make changes in ourselves. So I love this quote by Jim Rohn. I'll share this with you. The quote is, "Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. If you work hard on your job, you can make a living. Work hard on yourself, and you can make a fortune." And that's really one of the big takeaways that I want you guys to have from this is that personal development is leadership development. Leadership development is personal development. It's the same. As you get better as a person, as you get better as a leader, your income increases, your team size increases, your influence, your capacity to do things, everything gets better. Okay, Jonathan, do we have time to do this, or do you want to do this on a follow-up call? I realize.
Yeah, thank you for your sensitivity to time here. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I went ahead and put the evaluation in the chat, but basically the way it works is you fill out and you answer each question on a 1 to 10 scale, but we don't have the results tallying properly to do the math on the back end. So what you need to do is if you click on that link and you go through, just write down on a piece of paper or put it in your phone like a notes section, put the answer for each question 1 through 24, and I put them exactly as they are in the book. So once you get all those tallies of scores, Alec, if you can actually just show us kind of how to maybe like put them in that. Do you have like that graphic that shows kind of each of the categories? Right there. Perfect. Yeah. So basically, Alec, do you want to just run us through how to tally up the totals?
Yeah, so this is a shortened version because it would just take forever with the number of questions to do it live. So this is a shortened version. We can send, or if you've got a copy of the book, it's in the book, or I can send, or Jonathan, you could send just a screenshot of the book that has the accurate chart, because this one
Perfect.
is going to be shortened.
So actually do this for me. That's awesome. So everybody in the chat, go ahead and click into the chat, click onto that form and start filling it out. It's actually going to submit all of those results to me, and you should also have a place to put your name and email. I think it says email twice, the form. I was, kind of editing at last minute. So just put it in there. It'll submit that to me, and then I'll go ahead and just tally it up for you guys since there's only about, 18, looks like, people on the call. I'll go ahead and reply and give you those results manually just so you can have that. And then we'll have this training recorded, and then we'll have that form kind of finalized. So that way, if you share it, you can send that to anyone on the team with the form that's final, so it'll tally properly. And then for sake of time, do you have a couple more minutes to hang on here for questions, Alec? Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Before we jump into questions, I just want to say, everyone on the call, can you go ahead and take yourself off mute for a second and just let's give Alec some love for taking an hour of his time to share with us. So thank you so much, Alec. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Thank you.
Happy to
Thank
be
you,
here.
Alex. Appreciate your time.
Of
Hey,
course,
thank
of
you.
course.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome here.
Thank
I'll go
you.
here. No
Thanks for your
problem.
time.
Awesome. And then, yeah, Alec here, he has some information about, where to get the book. You want to tell us where to get the book and how to leave a review?
Yes. Yeah, so it's on Audible if you like the listening format. I know that's what I prefer. It just came out on Audible just real recently, and then it's on Amazon as well. And so yeah, like Jonathan said, I'm not getting paid to do this training. My big goal right now is promoting the book. And so the way that I get paid is reviews. So if you could leave an honest review, that's really the best way that the book gets out there and helps promote the book, helps people who need this and need some of these ideas, helps them find it. That would be much appreciated. That would mean a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alec. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording, and then we'll go ahead and stick around for some questions here.